Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to be doing something completely different today, and it's going to be something that I actually haven't done in a long time. A few years ago, when I began my channel, I did something by the name of a what if scenario, where I'd come up with like a scenario of what would happen if a certain person decided to stay in WWE. Now, I've seen these kind of videos around. I've seen a few people make what if, CM Punk stayed in WWE or something like that. And I've even seen it with Masako X's channel with Dragon Ball Z of what if, a certain character turned good, or what if a certain character did this. So, yeah, I feel inspired by some of these videos. And also, I did these videos myself, but they were not very good when I originally did them. And one of them is today's topic. That is, what if AJ Lee stayed in WWE? Now, my original idea when I originally made this video wasn't really all that great. I went from pay-per-view to pay-per-view discussing everything. And yeah, it was kind of pretty bad when I did it the first time, and I really didn't like it the first time because there were a few things that I could have done better. Now, one of the things that I know some people will say is that AJ Lee nowadays has said that she has stopped wrestling due to a bad neck injury. Now, at the time when I made the video back then, I didn't know why she retired. And because it's been revealed in AJ Lee's book, Crazy is My Superpower, that she mentioned that the reason why she stopped wrestling is because she had a bad injury that basically ended her career. So in this video, I have decided to retcon that and decided to come up with a way to keep AJ Lee in the WWE, but still managing to make her come back. So instead of, forcing her to leave or doing what she originally did, I decided to come up with a scenario where she is written off television and she can go off and take surgery. So let's begin. We're going to be traveling back to 2015 after WrestleMania. AJ Lee and Paige have defeated the Bella twins at WrestleMania. And AJ Lee, Paige, and Naomi on the Raw after WrestleMania this side have also defeated the Bella Twins and Natalya in 6 women tag team action. On the following Raw, instead of AJ Lee retiring and leaving, AJ Lee appears on this edition of Raw. She appears on this edition of Raw, and she is written. This is where we write her off the TV. This is where we write her off TV. We're gonna do a heel turn. It's going to be a surprising one. We're going to have Naomi turn heel on AJ Lee. She's going to turn heel and attack her. Very similar to what Bayley did to Sasha Banks in 2020 by wedging the chair between her neck and stomping on AJ's neck, riding her off TV to go and have surgery. Naomi is now a heel, and the reason for her heel turn, she explains it. She says that she is tired of AJ Lee always getting the spotlight. She is sick of it. She blames AJ for ruining her moment at WrestleMania 30. She said Naomi says WrestleMania 30 was my moment, but AJ Lee took it from me. She wanted all the glory for herself. It was supposed to be my night. It was supposed to be my night, and she took it away from me. Paige, AJ's best friend, stands up for AJ, and Naomi and Paige begin to feud through onwards to SummerSlam. And let's fast forward to SummerSlam. Nikki Bella is still the Divas Champion, and at SummerSlam, we get Nikki Bella versus Naomi for the Divas Championship. And Naomi slays Nikki Bella at SummerSlam to become the Divas Champion. Yeah, Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha still debut, and they still do their usual, but instead, there's going to be no Team Bad, no PCB, and no Team Bella. They're all just going to be off doing their own thing. Technically, Team Bad will still be a thing, but it will just be Naomi and Tamina. The other 3 horsewomen will just be off doing their own thing. So we fast forward to WrestleMania. 2016 happens as per normal. Everything through 2016, through early 2016, happens as per normal. As for Naomi, she's a dominant Divas champion. She's beaten the likes of Becky Lynch. She's even put down Charlotte at the Royal Rumble. And she heads into WrestleMania 32 as the Divas champion against Sasha Banks. At WrestleMania 32, it'll be Naomi defending the Divas championship against Sasha Banks. But this is where WWE brings in the WWE Women's Championship, as they originally did when Charlotte, Sasha, and Becky battled in that triple threat. But instead, it's going to be Sasha versus Naomi. And the matchup that they have is amazing. It is a great match, but in the end, Sasha Banks defeats Naomi and ends her long run. Sasha Banks wins at WrestleMania 32 to become the new WWE Women's Champion. The draft happens, and the draft happens as per normal, but there will be a few changes. The first change is that Charlotte Flair will be sent to SmackDown. She'll be sent to SmackDown along with Becky Lynch, while Sasha Banks and AJ Lee will be drafted to Raw. AJ is still active on the roster. She's just going to be eligible for the draft. So everything happens as per normal. The drafts are the same, but a few things change. Bayley ends up debuting as well, and Sasha and Bayley enter a friendly program, which that friendly program ends up into a bitter rivalry. At SummerSlam, Sasha Banks defeats Bayley to retain the Raw Women's Championship, and Bayley turns heel. Bayley turns heel and she becomes the role model character a lot earlier than normal. Now I know some of you may be thinking, why would you turn Bayley heel immediately upon her arrival on the main roster? You guys know me, I don't like to hug a character. I just thought it'd be really interesting to do something, you know, a bit different. So Bayley embraces being a heel, and yeah, Bayley and Sasha continue their feud. Bayley and Sasha continue their feud through the rest of the summer, with Sasha Banks defeating Bayley in mostly every match. And then at SummerSlam, and then we fast forward to the Royal Rumble. My apologies, I'm getting ahead of myself. Then we fast forward to the Royal Rumble in 2017. Stephanie McMahon announces the first ever Women's Royal Rumble match. Yep, we're getting the Women's Royal Rumble a bit earlier than normal. We're going to be getting it a year early. And the champions are Sasha Banks, the Raw Women's Champion, and the SmackDown Women's Champion, Alexa Bliss. They're going to be at ringside watching the match. Bayley comes out at number 1, and Charlotte comes out at number 2. Charlotte's still working as a babyface, by the way, because I prefer her as a babyface. Becky Lynch comes in at number 3, but there are a couple of other people who also show have a good lengthy run in the Rumble. Naomi has a good run, Paige has a good run, and so does Nikki Bella. And those names I just mentioned, they last through the entire Rumble. Bayley and Charlotte come out at number 1 and 2. Becky enters at number 3. Naomi enters at number 6, and Nikki comes in at number 9. So they make it all the way through everybody else. They outlast everybody. Number 30 is about to enter, as Charlotte, Becky, Naomi, Paige, and Nikki all anxiously wait to find out who the number 30 entrant is, as they all continue to fight and all try to throw each other out to get that opportunity to face Sasha or Alexa at WrestleMania. The buzzer goes off, and number 30 plays, number 30's theme plays, and everybody hears that famous theme song, "Let's Light It Up!" And the crowd go wild. AJ Lee makes her return to WWE after her long hiatus. A 2-year hiatus after Naomi injuring her. Naomi is shocked. She cannot believe AJ Lee is back. AJ doesn't waste time skipping. She just bolts to the ring. She bolts to the ring, and she goes right after Naomi. She attacks Naomi and goes right after her. And AJ eliminates Naomi from the Royal Rumble. She gets her revenge on the woman that tried to end her career 2 years ago. And then we get an intense stare down between AJ Lee and Charlotte Flair. They go at it for a while. Nikki Bella eventually gets eliminated by Becky Lynch, and that brings us down to these women. Bayley continues to get arrogant. Bayley tosses out Paige, and as she tosses out Paige, we're now down to our final four: Charlotte, AJ, Bayley, and Nikki Bella. And Becky Lynch. Sorry, they're all still in the ring. And Bayley is starting to get very cocky because she came out at number 1 and Charlotte came out at number 2. She ends up eliminating Becky Lynch as well, and she ends up eliminating Becky Lynch right in front of the champions. Bayley drops her guard. She gets cocky and she gets arrogant. She drops her guard and she turns her attention to Sasha Banks. She starts bad-mouthing Sasha Banks, and she starts telling Sasha Banks she starts pointing at Sasha Banks, letting her know that she's going to be picking her when she wins the Royal Rumble. And because of Bayley lowering her guard, AJ Lee comes from behind and tosses the role model out. Naomi and Bayley is stunned, and Sasha is just sitting on her chair, laughing. And now down to our final two, AJ Lee and Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair and AJ Lee have an intense match. The crowd are going ballistic for these two fan favorites. Charlotte Flair makes a mistake. AJ Lee is dangling against the ropes. Charlotte Flair makes the mistake. She runs and she goes to boot AJ Lee out of the ring. But AJ pulls the rope down and Charlotte gets sent sailing out of the ring. And AJ Lee wins the inaugural Women's Royal Rumble. She becomes the first woman to win the Royal Rumble match. AJ cries in the joy of emotion as she was out for 2 long years. And she is finally happy to be back, and the crowd is just going crazy. The fans are happy to see AJ Lee back. Alexa and Sasha, the champions, clap AJ in support as they are very proud to see her. The champions get in the ring, and interviewer Renee Young enters the ring, and AJ Lee gets to make her decision. They ask AJ, who is she going to face? Now, some of you may be thinking, oh, well, I think we all know what direction you're going to go. You're going to pick Sasha Banks. You're going to have AJ Lee select Sasha Banks because of the dream match. Actually, no. You're going to be surprised by this. AJ actually picks Alexa. She picks Alexa Bliss, and those two will do battle at WrestleMania 33. Now, why Alexa? Because, well, during that time period, everybody compared Alexa to AJ. A lot of people I've heard stories that some people compared the two with their natural talent, that they were both really good. But also, I don't want to do Sasha Banks just yet. I want to save that feud for later. I've got bigger ideas for those two down the road. I'm going to be going through at least a couple of years. So let's save AJ and let's save Sasha and AJ, and I'll get there soon. So now we have now got our full attention on the women's match, AJ Lee and Alexa Bliss. Now, because this is my what if and I can do what I want, at WrestleMania 30, it'll be the battle of the 4 horsewomen. Sasha Banks defending the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania 33 against Bayley, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte Flair. Yes, Becky and Charlotte are on SmackDown, but as I said, this is my what if, I can do what I want. And at WrestleMania, it is a great pay-per-view. And at WrestleMania 33, Bayley becomes the new Raw Women's Champion when she pins Charlotte Flair. She will pin Charlotte Flair to become the Raw Women's Champion. Sasha Banks has lost at WrestleMania. That puts her record at 1-1 at WrestleMania. And Charlotte, she's winless. So there you go. There's a big surpriser right there. And as for AJ and Alexa, their build would have actually been relatively good. You know, with their constant back and forth on the mic. You know, I may give Alexa crap, but Alexa is a great promo. I can just picture Alexa and AJ just bantering back and forth at each other. I think the promos would be fantastic. Also during the build, Paige is also on SmackDown. Well, yeah, she technically would be. Paige is also there. And during the build, Paige continues to show her support to her best friend AJ Lee, telling Alexa that she stands no chance against her best friend at WrestleMania. Alexa and Paige have a match on SmackDown, which Alexa ends up winning. Basically to send a message to AJ. So, it is one-on-one at WrestleMania. It is AJ Lee and Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss making her debut at WrestleMania, defending the title against the veteran AJ Lee. AJ Lee having her first championship match in a very, very long time. Since 2014, having her first championship matchup. It is the first time AJ Lee has ever challenged for a championship since TLC 2014, when she battled Nikki Bella. And the matchup is fantastic. Alexa hits the Twisted Bliss, and it looks like it's going to be over for AJ. The referee counts 1, 2, and AJ kicks out of the Twisted Bliss. Alexa does her Kylo Ren temper tantrum. She gets frustrated. She goes for the blissful DDT, but AJ reverses. She hits the Shining Wizard, and Alexa puts her foot on the rope, giving the fans the heartbreak. Fans thought it was over, but it's not over yet. AJ continues to fight. Alexa and AJ continue to go back and forth, but Alexa, because she's new on the roster, she makes a rookie mistake. She does her thing when she grabs them by the throats and then bends them backwards, and she starts yelling in AJ's face. She starts telling her that I'm the new dog in town, and you should retire and go back home. Alexa goes for her DDT. AJ reverses out of the DDT and locks in the Black Widow, and Alexa Bliss taps out to the Black Widow, and AJ Lee is the SmackDown Women's Champion at WrestleMania 30. Wow, what a great matchup that was. Now, as for AJ's title run, how would it go? Well, here's the thing. Because it's 2017, and, the draft comes up, and, the Superstar Shake-Up was coming up that following year, there's going to be some changes. We're going to make some changes. Becky Lynch will be heading over to Raw. Charlotte will end up staying on SmackDown. Charlotte would end up getting over to Raw along with Becky Lynch. And Sasha Banks dropped the Raw Women's title, so she ends up going over to SmackDown. Alexa Bliss also ends up going over to Raw as well because star power. So yeah. So basically, those are basically the big changes that happen in the shake-up. Bayley just has a long reign. Just think of her title reign that she had recently in 2019 through 2020. We're basically going to be doing her long title run here instead of, then. As for AJ's title run, she faces off against a variety of different opponents. But her first target is the woman that tried to end her career, Naomi. Naomi is still a heel by this point, and she's had a pretty good run as a heel. And so AJ and Naomi clash at a pay-per-view to settle this issue once and for all. And AJ ends up retaining. And at Money in the Bank, Carmella becomes the inaugural Money in the Bank winner, as per normal. But no James Ellsworth. She just wins it at Money in the Bank. Now, some of you may be wondering, does AJ lose the championship? Well, yes. She ends up losing it at SummerSlam. To who? Well, Carmella. Carmella announces her intentions to cash in at SummerSlam. She vows to be the one to put down AJ and beat her reign. And that's exactly what she does. But, not clean though. The matchup happens and it's a decent match, it's a decent match. Carmella, is still new at the time. She's not really as good as not as good. But we get an instant where the referee gets flattened. And this is where a loyal friend decides to play traitor. And that is Paige. Paige comes into the ring looking like she's going to help AJ retain the title. But Paige super kicks AJ in the face, turning heel and betraying her best friend. Carmella would hit the super kick, the referee would be revived, and the referee counts to the 3, and Carmella becomes the SmackDown Women's Champion at SummerSlam. Yeah, AJ's reign would have mostly consisted with a couple of matches with Naomi, but, you know, they would have been pretty good. AJ didn't really want a long run. She just wanted to be champion until SummerSlam. Sasha Banks, however, she becomes the new SmackDown Women's Champion within a month. She ends up beating Carmella. Yeah, Carmella was a transitional champion. Sasha Banks ends up becoming the champion in her place. Yeah, I know it's a bit unfair to Carmella, but hey, Sasha Banks at this point is still very popular, still one of the big fan favorites at the time. So, yeah, Carmella, you know, just as a transitional champion. And trust me, at least it's better. Trust me, at least she was the champion. Sasha Banks holds the title through the rest of 2017. Then comes to the 2018 Royal Rumble. Asuka wins the 2018 Royal Rumble as per normal, and, you know, the same final, it came down to the same final 2 between Asuka and Nikki Bella, but AJ Lee was also there as well in the final 3. Nikki Bella would eliminate AJ though. So, and then Asuka would eliminate Nikki, and Asuka would end up selecting Sasha Banks as her opponent at WrestleMania 34. And at WrestleMania 34, we get a couple of women's matches. Now, as for Bayley, like I said, she goes on the same title reign that she originally did a few years ago in 2019 through 2020. So, Bayley beat the likes of Becky Lynch, a babyface Alexa Bliss, because, you know, they needed more babyfaces, and she beat a variety of people, such as Alexa and Becky, and a couple of the other rising talents that wanted to try and take her down. But at WrestleMania 34, it'll be Bayley defending the title after a year-long title reign, because she would have literally hit 365 days by this point, against Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 34. Charlotte Flair was out taking a break, so she was nowhere near the title picture for a while. And, well, not really on a long break, she was gone for a little bit, and she mostly spent most of the time out of the title picture, so don't worry, I didn't have her in the title picture. She was basically out of the title picture throughout Bayley's title reign, so she's now back in the title picture. She won the Elimination Chamber to earn an opportunity to fight for the title. She was out of the title picture for a while, so I'm pretty sure you guys can let it slide. And as for Sasha, she faces Asuka. Charlotte beats Bayley to end her long title run. So Charlotte is the big babyface that overcomes the evil role model and her scheming championship reign. As for Sasha and Asuka, they have a brilliant classic match. Just like every single time Sasha and Asuka have matches. It's kind of similar to their matches that they had last year, but obviously minus Bayley. But at the end of the day, Sasha Banks is the one that beats Asuka's undefeated streak. Sasha Banks locks in the bank statement, and the Empress of Tomorrow taps out to the bank statement, and Sasha Banks has become the first person to defeat Asuka, and Asuka's winning streak is over. Look at that! Sasha Banks has 2 victories at WrestleMania in this What If video. Now, as you guys mentioned, I haven't mentioned AJ Lee at all. AJ Lee was not on the card on this year's WrestleMania. And this is where my idea comes in. The reason why I gave Sasha Banks the SmackDown Women's Championship, just so in that way, AJ Lee can come out and spoil the proceedings between Sasha and Asuka. Asuka does her spiel of Sasha was ready for Asuka. They hug and embrace after a grueling match. AJ Lee comes to the ring. AJ Lee comes to the ring. She's annoyed that she wasn't on WrestleMania. So she grabs the microphone and she walks up to Sasha Banks and she says, "You put that title on the line against me right now." Sasha backs down. She says, "Listen, AJ, I would love to defend my title against you, but I just had a grueling match with Asuka." AJ starts showing signs of turning heel, and AJ starts saying to Sasha, "What, you're gonna back down? When you became the champion, you said you would defend your title against anyone, anytime, anywhere, any place, at any moment. So you put that title on the line right now. Sasha reluctantly agrees to put the title on the line. Exhausted and tired after her match with Asuka, it is still a good match, despite her being quite tired and exhausted. But in the end, Sasha Banks overcomes AJ, locking her in the bank statement and tapping her out. Look at that! Sasha Banks has 2 victories. Now 3 victories at WrestleMania, but 2 straight victories in one WrestleMania. That is incredible. Sasha retains the title after a long grueling match with AJ, and this is where AJ turns heel. AJ snaps, she attacks Sasha Banks and beats her down. She basically does the Shinsuke Nakamura. She beats the hell out of Sasha Banks, pissed off that Sasha Banks broke her WrestleMania undefeated streak. Yep, Sasha single-handedly broke 2 undefeated streaks at WrestleMania. Asuka's undefeated streak and AJ Lee's WrestleMania streak. And this is where the long rivalry between AJ Lee and Sasha Banks begins over the SmackDown Women's Championship. And I think this is the perfect time to end this video. So what did you guys think? Did you guys like my what if idea? Did you guys agree with any of the stuff I said here? And if you guys really did enjoy this video, I will also do a part 2. And that part 2 will be the entire AJ Lee Sasha Banks feud. That is what I will do in part 2. If you guys are ready for part 2 and you want to see a part 2, that's what I will do in part 2. I'll do a full AJ versus Sasha Banks rivalry from the very beginning to its very end. Sasha and AJ, all I will say is this: they feud for the rest of 2018. That is where I'm going to be teasing. That's what I'll be teasing. It's basically going to be like Sasha and Charlotte from 2016, but less title switches. I'll just say that. So there you go. There's your teaser for part 2. If you guys did indeed enjoy this part and enjoy this what if, I will definitely do a part 2. That's only if you enjoyed this first part and really want to see a part 2. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I will see you all next time.